Imagine this mystery, right? It's gripped the world for, what, nearly 3 decades? A huge shadow over one of music's biggest icons. We're talking, of course, about the murder of Tupac Shakur, September 7, 1996, Las Vegas. For 27 long years, it just sat there. One of hip-hop's most notorious unsolved crimes.
It really was. And that's why this deep dive is just so compelling, because just last year, September 2023, there was this huge breakthrough, an arrest, finally. But get this, the key wasn't some, lost DNA evidence or a surprise witness. No. It came largely from these incredibly detailed confessions given in like a series of online interviews.
Online interviews?
Yeah, on a hip-hop media platform, Vlad TV, by a guy named Keefe D Davis.
That's mind-boggling, really. A hip-hop interview cracking this case. So, okay, our mission today, let's unpack this like unique intersection of media, maybe personal ambition, and this decades-long chase for justice. What's really fascinating, what we want to dig into, is how these, seemingly casual chats could provide evidence that just eluded professional investigators for so long. It feels like a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. It's a remarkable turn of events. And to really get the significance, we kind of need to go back to that night. Tupac shot multiple times, drive-by, right after a Mike Tyson fight in Vegas. Died 6 days later. He's only 25.
It's tragic. And for years, so many questions, but frustratingly few answers, right?
Exactly. The scene was just, full of questions.
And you hear about this code of silence in the community, lack of cooperative witnesses, maybe limited physical evidence. It must have been infuriating for investigators.
Definitely. Think about trying to solve a puzzle when half the pieces are missing and nobody wants to talk. That's pretty much what they faced. Vegas maybe also focused on its image, tourism, perhaps less keen on a really prolonged, messy gang investigation.
Right, that makes sense. So after all that time, what finally made the pieces click? What was the spark?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the astonishing thing is, it wasn't like a cold case unit finding some old file. The breakthrough, it came through this really public and totally unconventional channel, Vlad TV, a hip-hop media platform.
Run by DJ Vlad, Vladislav Libovny. And you mentioned he has a deep connection to Tupac.
He does, yeah, a really deep one, actually. He created this mixtape, Rap Phenomenon 2, which was huge. One mixtape of the year really launched his career, and he calls Tupac his favorite rapper. So there's this personal admiration there.
So this wasn't just some random interviewer. This was someone with a genuine stake in it, almost.
Yeah.
How did that shape Vlad TV's style? Because it's known for being different.
Exactly. That admiration seems to have fueled Vlad TV's distinctive style, almost investigative, you could say. Since like 2008, they went way beyond the usual promo interviews. Vlad does intense background research, reading books, court docs, old interviews, everything.
And he asks the tough questions, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't shy away from contradictions.
He really doesn't. He's direct, often uncomfortable questions, methodically follows up on gaps, inconsistencies. It's almost like building a case file in the interview itself.
It makes you wonder, how does a hip-hop interviewer get closer than seasoned detectives? There's something about that dynamic, isn't there?
There really is. It might be about the setting, the platform versus, a police interrogation room. He created an environment where, details just surface.
And the person providing those details,
Right.
Keefe D Davis, 60 years old, former Southside Compton Crip. And crucially, he's the uncle of Orlando Anderson, the long suspected in Tupac's murder, though Anderson himself was killed back in *98.
Yeah.
Davis was confirmed as one of the 4 people in that white Cadillac, the car the shots came from.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is this wasn't the first time Davis had sort of admitted things. Back in 2008, 2009, he gave statements to an LAPD task force. But, and this is key, it was part of an immunity deal for a separate drug case.
Ah, okay, so those statements couldn't necessarily be used against him for the murder itself because of that specific deal?
Kind of. It's complex, but the immunity was tied to that drug case cooperation. It didn't give him blanket protection forever, especially not for new public confessions. Then, in 2019, he even published a book, a memoir called Compton Street Legend, and he detailed his role in the shooting in there, too.
So he'd been talking about it. But the Vlad TV interview in July 2019, that was different. That was the watershed moment.
That was absolutely the turning point. He went on supposedly to promote his book, but the conversation, it went much deeper. He made these huge admissions right there on camera, confirmed he was the shot caller in the car.
The leader. He admitted orchestrating it.
Yes. Described his authority over the others, talked about planning the retaliation. He even detailed how he got the murder weapon.
Wow. On camera. He explained getting the gun.
He did, and the planning behind it. confirmed being in the Cadillac, the route they took, the moments before and after the shooting, specific details.
And Vlad's style played into this, the research, the follow-ups.
Totally. Vlad had read the book. He even consulted with the co-author, Yusuf Jah, during the interview.
Yeah.
He asked these really targeted follow-up questions, pushing on inconsistencies, but somehow the environment felt maybe comfortable enough for Davis to just keep talking.
So not just vague hints, he got specific about the motive.
Very specific. Said the shooting was direct retaliation for that fight earlier at the MGM Grand Casino where Tupac and his crew assaulted Orlando Anderson.
Right, the fight involving his nephew.
Exactly. He described how quickly they organized the retaliation, who decided who would be involved.
And the actual event, the timeline.
Laid it out. Following Tupac's convoy from the MGM, the moment of the shooting at Flamingo and Koval Lane, even talked about what happened right after. The escape, how they split up, tried to avoid getting caught.
It's basically a first-person account of the entire crime, on video.
Pretty much. The kind of detailed narrative investigators chase for decades, it wasn't off the record, it wasn't whispered, it was broadcast.
So how did law enforcement react? Initially, didn't they sort of downplay it?
They did, yeah. The Las Vegas Metro Police seemed hesitant at first. But the sheer detail, the repetition across interviews, it eventually forced their hand. They had to reopen the investigations seriously.
What tipped the balance then? The book, the interviews?
It was a combination. The 2019 book gave them written admissions, but the Vlad TV interviews, that was video evidence, detailed confessions. And crucially, those interviews weren't covered by that old immunity deal from 2008. That deal was specific. Plus, there was new leadership at LVMPD, maybe more willing to tackle this high-profile cold case.
Okay, so the wheels start turning again. July 2023, they raid Davis's house in Henderson, Nevada.
Right. Seize electronics, documents, more evidence potentially linking him through conspiracy. And then, September 29, 2023, the arrest. Keefe D charged with murder with use of a deadly weapon.
And there's that gang enhancement, too.
Yes, which could add, I think, 20 years. Because the allegation is the murder was committed to benefit the gang, plus conspiracy to commit murder.
And the prosecution's case hinges heavily on his own words.
Overwhelmingly. They're using his admissions from Vlad TV, his book, arguing he was the shot caller, orchestrated it, provided the gun. His own narrative is the core of their case. He's still in custody, no bail.
Now let's talk about DJ Vlad's perspective.
Yeah.
Because he's been quite vocal, hasn't he?
He has. He actually said, quote, "I felt that I essentially solved this whole case 4 years ago with that first Keefe D interview in 2019. Said it laid out the case from beginning to end and gave him, as a Tupac fan, closure."
But he positions himself as a journalist, right? Not helping the police.
Exactly. He's refused multiple requests from law enforcement to cooperate, says he won't work against his guests, that all the info was public anyway through the book and interviews. He's trying to draw a line and maintain journalistic integrity, arguing his platform isn't there to incriminate people directly for the police.
But that's the huge contradiction here, isn't it? Regardless of his intent, those interviews became the central evidence.
Undeniably. Police and prosecutors explicitly cited the Vlad TV content. It provided confessions they didn't have elsewhere in that format without the immunity issue. And Vlad TV's reach meant everyone saw them.
So his journalism, intended or not, directly led to the arrest. That sparks a lot of debate.
Oh, massively, especially in the hip-hop community. There are mixed feelings, relief maybe at getting answers after so long, but also real debate about Vlad TV's methods, the ethics of using interviews this way.
And it fuels that whole Vlad curse idea, right? That people get into trouble after appearing on his show.
Yeah, this became the biggest example. His supporters say he just documents what people choose to say. Critics argue his style pushes people towards incriminating themselves.
It forces some big questions, doesn't it? Like, what responsibility does an interviewer have? Do you warn guests? How does this change the media-law enforcement relationship? Where's that line between documenting and creating evidence?
And First Amendment issues, too. Press freedom versus the needs of criminal justice. There are no easy answers there. It's complex territory.
It really is. And maybe the biggest question of all, why? Why would Keefe D confess? On camera, after all this time, what was the thinking?
It's likely a mix of things. Psychology, maybe finance, maybe a feeling of safety. There's definitely a desire for recognition. Telling his version of this huge story, being seen as the main guy, the shot caller, cementing his legend, maybe?
Yeah, potentially financial incentives too. Payment for interviews, book sales, staying relevant.
Very likely a factor, yes. And maybe a perceived safety net, thinking the statute of limitations was gone, or witnesses wouldn't talk, or maybe misunderstanding the scope of that old immunity deal.
Overconfidence,
Could
perhaps?
be. And maybe age, health, he's 60, maybe feeling time running out, wanting to set the record straight, legacy concerns. It's probably a combination of all that.
This whole saga, it feels like a prime example of how cold cases can be cracked open in this social media age.
Absolutely. It shows how modern media can just reignite these dormant cases.
Yeah.
People wanting a platform can accidentally or maybe intentionally give up information. And digital interviews, they create this permanent, searchable record, evidence that law enforcement can revisit anytime.
Plus the pressure of social media. Maybe aging suspects feel pushed to tell their side before it's too late.
It seems like it. And you can bet police are adapting. They're monitoring podcasts, YouTube, social media. That whole digital footprint is now part of cold case investigation. The game has definitely changed.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Key takeaways from this deep dive into Tupac's case. First, clearly, media platforms like Vlad TV, their interview style, can be incredibly effective at getting detailed confessions. Maybe more effective sometimes than standard police work.
Yeah, that's a big one. Second, Keefe D's own desire for recognition, for a platform ultimately handed investigators the evidence they needed for decades. His motivations led to the breakthrough.
Right. And third, the unintended consequences. Vlad aiming for journalism, but his work directly resulting in solving this huge case, regardless of his stance on cooperation.
It highlights that complex relationship we talked about.
Definitely. So this whole deep dive, it's really a landmark case, isn't it? Showing how wanting to tell a story, combined with today's digital platforms, can just completely reshape criminal justice. It makes you think about the future of evidence, the ethics of confessing online, and even, how our own digital trails might intersect with history someday. What does this mean for solving other historical crimes? And maybe, how does it change how we think about what we decide to share and where we share it? Lots to chew on there.